Good morning, afternoon, or evening, Cross Church family, whatever time of day you're watching this. I'm Zach Kordic. I'm the youth pastor here at the Cross Church, and it is my week to bring you our online devotional. Youth group over the past few months has been studying the book of Genesis, and this is one of my favorite books of the entire Bible. I love a good origin story, right? And this book tells us about so many origins, where we came from, what our purpose is, what God's purpose was in creating us, and then after the fall, what his plan for redemption for all of mankind was. And as I've told my students, Genesis is a very R-rated book. There's a lot of insane, crazy, evil stuff that happens throughout this book. It is amazing how quickly mankind not only falls from perfection, but then descends into the pits of sin. And one of the most unjust narratives in the entirety of Genesis, perhaps in the entirety of Scripture, is that of Joseph. Joseph, the son of Jacob, son of Israel, who, if you're familiar with this story, was Jacob's favorite. The other brothers knew this, and in order to get rid of Jacob, they were originally going to kill him, but they changed their minds and they sold him into slavery, convinced Jacob that he was dead, and then Joseph, of course, once he makes it to Egypt, he rises through the ranks as a slave, and then he is betrayed once again, and he is thrown in prison, and he is essentially at the end of his rope, right? And it is from this place that God then uses him to prepare Egypt for a massive famine. And Joseph rises from being a prisoner in a dungeon to being second in command in all of Egypt. And it is through this position that he is able to save countless lives from this famine, right? But Joseph, of course, I cannot imagine the despair and the betrayal he must have felt when he was in prison, right? Because that's the second time it had happened to him in his entire life. You would think, I don't know about you, but I would be ready to give up. I would be ready to be done. I'd be like, you know what, I'm just going to rot in prison for the rest of my life. If God has allowed this to happen to me, not once, but twice, then I must be an outcast. I must be good for nothing. He must not have any purpose for me. And I know in my life there have been many, many times because of major events in my life, I have felt distant from God, or I have often asked him why he would allow these terrible things to happen to me, why he would allow death, why he would allow destruction, why he would allow loneliness or depression or sorrow to pervade my life, not just a couple of days of bad things, but entire seasons where I felt like there would be no end to them. And this narrative of Joseph, it brings me great hope because it illustrates a very powerful truth about who God is and about our understanding of him. Joseph rises to power. He saves these people. His brothers are in Canaan, and they have to go to Egypt to get food. And of course, they don't recognize Joseph because it has been so long, and he is such a different person than when they sold him into slavery. But Joseph recognizes them, and eventually they reconcile. This is a very powerful narrative. I suggest you go and read it. And Joseph convinces his entire family to move to Egypt to escape the famine. Well, eventually Jacob dies, and Joseph's brothers are like, oh, he's, now that our father is dead, he has no reason to treat us well. He has no reason to continue to care for us, right? His true feelings towards us, his true hatred of us is going to come through. So I wanted to read you, this is Genesis 50, verses 15 through 21. And I wanted to dive into this a little bit once I read it, so read this with me. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him." So they sent a message to Joseph, saying, "Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father." So they're lying to him. Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." But Joseph said to them, "Do not fear. For am I in the place of God? This is verse 20. This is our sort of key verse here. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones. Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. I'm sure Joseph's experiences, his love of God, his love of his family, his love for the people around him, gave him perspective, right? He was able to look at the entire narrative of his life and say, yes, what happened to me was evil. It was bad. It was awful. It was the pits of hell. But even though it was meant for evil, God has used this for good. If Joseph had never been sold into slavery, he never would have made it to Egypt. If he had never been thrown into prison, then he wouldn't have been in a position where he could interpret the dreams of Pharaoh. And if he didn't interpret the dreams of Pharaoh, then he would not have risen to prominence, to second in command, and prepared Egypt for famine. If Joseph hadn't suffered, people would have died. Think about that, ruminate on that. And then think about Christ. If Christ hadn't suffered, if he had not allowed to happen to him what happened to him, where would we be? And I know for myself, it is very easy sometimes when I am upset about something, when I have a minor inconvenience sometimes, or even if there is a major challenge I'm facing, it is very tempting to sort of grovel and wallow in my self-pity and say, no one understands, I've got the worst life ever, I feel awful, I don't understand why God would allow me to go through this. But it is narratives like these, and you can find these throughout Genesis. It doesn't matter how awful the event is. It doesn't matter how terrible the intention is. God can use even the worst of circumstances for his will, right? God can use even the worst of our experiences for his will, right? God, there's a note in my Bible I'd like to read. It says, God rules and reigns over all things and orchestrates the events of this world to perfectly fulfill his good intentions for his creation. This hope is magnified in light of the depth of human sin and the systemic evil at work in the world. God is capable of taking every facet of life, even great evil, and working it together to accomplish his will. So I would encourage you today, wherever you find yourself, reflect on some of the worst things that have happened to you and begin to trace God's will through those things. Some of us might be able to sit here and say, I know exactly how God has used the worst day of my life for his glory. Some of us might still be in that season of not understanding, a season of despair, a season of hopelessness, a season of struggle, of doubt. But I can tell you this, looking at the book of Genesis, looking at the entire narrative of Scripture, looking at my own life, there is nothing God will not redeem if we are obedient to him and submit to him and his will. I'll leave you with this final thought. This is something I read a couple of months ago, and this has sort of stuck in my brain since then. Faith, in its truest form, trusts that God's purposes are greater than our understanding. I love you, Cross Church family. I'm praying for you in earnest. I pray that wherever you find yourself, you know that God can use what was meant for evil for good.